Hey, welcome to Radicalized, where truth survives, and we got your back. I'm here with Jim Stewartson, High Fidelity, Sean Connor, Twitter's most likely to succeed. We are so happy to be back with you guys in the new year. The new year for us got off to a really weird, rocky, fucked up start, but here we are doing the work because that's what we do. We're super excited because we have my spirit animal, Martin Sheil, with us today. He is a former IRS investigator who specialized in criminal investigations of global money laundering. So he should be very informative and amusing. And since we always break our own news, I would like to kick it off with the news of the week after we dropped episode number 7 with Hardeep from Byline Times, which was epic if you haven't seen it. The news was that we were 2 men down. Jim Stewartson was banned off of Twitter again, and maybe we can do a little preview chat on that, Jim. Yeah, we laugh. It was a lot of pain this week. Jim, you want to give us just a quick little hint of what's to come later in the show?
Yeah, let's see. For the second time in just over a month, I was inauthentically mass reported. This time by both people on the right and people who are supposed to be on the left, who bragged about it and had a good time dancing on my grave for a second time, which, you know, for a second time, I disappointed them. And as I said today, guys, I exist. Get used to it. Just go away. Go do your thing. I don't give a shit about you. Leave me alone. That's all. So anyway,
Yeah.
there's a lot to talk about there. But
Yeah.
after 3 days and you know, a little bit of help from some friends, including you know, my friends at Midas, who we'll talk about in a little bit. You know, you never know. The thing is with Twitter, you don't know why you come back or not. I was rejected like 2 minutes before I got unsuspended. I got the email and I was already doing like my fourth appeal. And I was like, okay, here we are. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but thanks.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about it more.
I look forward to hearing more about it. The pain is very real. With two of the 4 members of this podcast down, I then got a lot of pain on Wednesday, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I will say that I learned from Jim many things, and one of the things I learned is to block inauthentic accounts. And if someone seems authentic, give them a chance. And I told the one authentic person who was part of this crew that one of my character defects is being extremely loyal to imperfect people, myself being an imperfect person. And when the 4 of us launched this podcast, we knew there was going to be pain involved because we knew that this was going to be a wonderful opportunity for people to learn a lot. And we made a pact that we would stick together, and together we are sticking. So I'm just happy to have waded our way and navigated our way through the week. And I'm very, very excited about the fierce show that we have coming up today. So without further ado, I say we get right into word or phrase of the week.
Okay, so our word phrase of the week this week is chaos actor. And what is a chaos actor, you may ask? A chaos actor is an individual who infiltrates or inserts themselves into a situation or organization in order to cause chaos. Right?
Mhm.
And yeah, that's pretty much the reaction they're looking for, is everybody running different directions.
Yep. You see the
freaking
one
out.
person, see them run
Yep.
through and change the course of the stream. Everything goes the wrong way.
Everything breaks up. That's a chaos agent for you. And you know, this is an interesting word to have, because obviously there are chaos agents on Twitter. And I'd like to kind of talk about the history of some of this stuff, which really, if you go back to the Church Commission and you go back to COINTELPRO, which was the FBI, and Chaos, which was the CIA, they were actually surveilling American citizens, right? and they were inserting or infiltrating organizations such as, African American rights organizations back in the day, peaceful movements, socialism, communism, whatever. Government agents were actually infiltrating these groups to break them apart, cause them to do stupid things.
Yeah.
So
divided we fall. So this is nothing new. It's just that the playing fields have changed. And, we had a nice little party yesterday, gentlemen, celebrating a book that I had done. And one of the things I realized halfway through is that we've created a community on Twitter that really relies on each other, and we rely on people for information. And it's a very real community and a very real family. And so anybody who inserts himself in an inauthentic way to do harm and to cast shade and to do all the techniques that we have seen is either being paid or just possibly misguided. There's many probably different reasons. But, get off our fucking lawn, because we're going to do the work. We're going to do the work. I don't go to your lawn and, defecate in front of your doorstep. I stay in my lane. And the reason I do that is because we got a lot of work. And so anyone who's taken the time to try to mess up other people, I think anybody should take a good hard look at that and ask themselves why and what good does it do? And Jim has taught me to just block anything that's inauthentic. So these chaos agents, these chaos actors, they're everywhere. They're nefarious. They do real world psychological battery. And I'm not having it.
Well, I think part of the reason they came after me is because I accidentally pooped on their lawn. My bad.
It's just a waste of time. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yes.
total time wasting tactic.
Yeah, I mean the problem is it's worse than just being able to block them, right? It takes they and I'll tell a little bit more of my story, but they go after your friends, they go after your allies, they go after your
Yeah,
work, they
that's
go
exactly
after your
right.
family, they go after everything they can. And so it's not just as simple, sadly, as blocking them on Twitter, but certainly, at least on Twitter, that is the first thing to do. So
I wonder some days if I'll ever get a LinkedIn account back. I mean, I'm the only person I know who's been banned off of LinkedIn 4 times.
it's pretty
4
hard.
freaking times.
It's pretty hard.
So he's retired his 19th jersey from Twitter, and he's been banned off LinkedIn 4 times. And all he did really initially, before becoming that monster that he speaks of, is figure out the transnational mob behind the Kyle Rittenhouse Give, Send, Go fundraiser. And they did not like that exposure, probably, maybe, allegedly, because maybe there was some sort of money chicanery involved, and we can ask Marty about that. So stand by. Let's get on to why it matters. Hi-Fi.
Let's talk about why it matters.
You're all right.
Play me in, Sean.
You got it, buddy. One sec.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why high fidelity?
All right, let's talk about why it matters. 3 stories I want to point out this week. This first one wasn't really buried, but I don't think people really understand what is implied by it, and that is chaos in Kazakhstan. What's going on in Kazakhstan is the former president, who was a strongman, mob leader. I could try to pronounce his name, but I just butcher it. Anyway, former president and current president are having a war over who really runs the country. And this has been put into place. The violence occurred. There was a bunch of uprising. The people are actually uprising because of massive income inequality, rising fuel prices, a completely falling standard of living. I mean, there are places in Kazakhstan where people are living like basically medieval peasants, right? And the former head of national security was arrested, and the president is now running that job himself. And the big thing that I really want to point out is that the new president called in Vladimir Putin's troops. They were given shoot-on-sight orders, and now 164 people are dead, at least. 4,000 have been arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And
What-
this is
let's think about what happens when an old president still says he's a new president, he's the president, or the new president is not legitimate and takes the job from the old president. What happens in those situations? You get fucking civil war, right?
That's right.
Which is, again, sadly, the goal of, Trump and his puppet masters, who are trying to cause that by setting up this false conflict between somebody who shouldn't have been in the presidency in the first place, and someone who absolutely kicked the other guy's ass despite all the active measures to prevent it.
That's right.
yeah. Go
ahead.
ahead, Heidi.
I was just going to say we're going to talk more about that when Marty's here, because that's something he wants to talk about. What is right next door to that country? I believe it's the Ukraine.
Right. And it's a, it gives Putin a pretense for moving troops into Kazakhstan. And from Kazakhstan, they're just a hop, skip, and a jump right over to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
And
the
also-
setup? Very well could be. I mean, we all know that Vladimir Putin, when he does something, he doesn't do it with one goal in mind. He always has at least 2, 3, 4 goals in mind that he's trying to obtain.
He's a fascist. He's a strategist. He sees the world as a risk board, and he's trying to win risk. Right? He thinks his job is to take over the entire world. Right? Just like all these fascists, they don't know how else to live their lives because they're malignant narcissists. So this guy, the reason why he's doing Kazakhstan and Ukraine, in my opinion, is not only, as you said, to take over this territory, but it's to create a straw man for us to, be angry about, instead of the actual, warfare that's being conducted on us every single day and has been for 5 years.
Right.
One of the things that upsets me about about the Ukraine situation, and that our president is paying so much attention. That's just Putin wagging his dick. In the meantime, he's over here actually attacking us and hurting people in the tens of millions every single day. And so, my opinion, and I can't wait to talk to Martin about this, is we need to start taking these tactics and these countermeasures that we're thinking of as deterrents, like sanctions, and start putting them into fucking place now, because we don't need deterrence, we need defense. Yeah.
Yeah, and we would be very remiss if we did not draw the parallels to Trump, as you did earlier, Jim, because this just goes back to art of war. If you allow a deposed dictator to retain any power, you're fucked. And we are seeing the manifestation of that. Trump's failed coup, the anniversary just passed of that, what's coming around the corner next. So I think it's very important to be paying attention to these things.
I agree.
All right, high five. What's next?
All right. Our next story. Holy smokes, I completely forgot. No, let's see.
Cyber ninjas.
Cyber ninjas disappear. See, they completely disappeared out of my head. Cyber ninjas disappear.
I can understand why.
It's an important story.
It is an important story, and they're cyber ninjas, so they just poof, they're gone. Cyber ninjas disappear. So there's a judge in Arizona. As you know, Cyber Ninjas is the company that ran the Arizona vote audit, right? And what they actually found was like 1,000 more votes for Joe Biden. Anything that they argued against was re-audited, sent to someone else. The Arizona state legislature released a report refuting every single point that Cyber Ninjas tried to bring up. A judge in the legal case that was brought against Cyber Ninjas, they asked for discovery. They said, you have to turn over all these emails and communications that we want to see. Cyber Ninjas refused to do that. Finally, the judge said, this is some old bullshit, and said, I'm going to charge you $50,000 a day in fines. Cyber Ninjas said, oop, we're out. Well, what they're trying to do is they're
What do you
trying to
mean?
get out
What
of.
do you mean? Oop, they're out. Like they pulled a Cambridge Analytica, where they just decided to go bankrupt, or what?
They're
happened?
dissolving. They're not even filing bankruptcy. They're dissolving the company. They've fired everybody. Cyber Ninjas doesn't exist anymore, is what the former CEO Doug Logan
Yeah,
said.
they disappeared
and-
like his mortgage.
Yeah, just
You made me
yeah.
spit my tea,
Yeah,
Sean.
who ninja'd CEO Doug Logan's mortgage, and what we mean by that, there you go, right there on 6/15/17 he picked 2017 he picked up a $425,000 mortgage. On 1/27/2021, that entire mortgage was all paid off.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Disappeared.
it'll be interesting to
we'll,
see what.
we'll link to my thread where I exposed this particular fun fact about Doug Logan, where $500,000 in mortgage just goes away. Also, by the way,
He is a ninja, though.
well, he's a ninja, but who paid for the fraud? Patrick
Yeah.
Byrne through America Project paid $5 million, and America's Future, which is Mike Flynn's organization, a CNP front, paid $1 million for that. So, speaking of Russia,
Speaking of Russia,
like Patrick Byrne is the most comically obvious, like Russia compromised idiot on planet Earth. He was Marina Butina's
boy toy.
boyfriend for a little bit.
Yeah, she got around that one.
She did.
She had lots of boy toys.
I will say though, it kind of follows a pattern that I find interesting. I encourage everybody to read the Steve Bannon Build a Wall indictment, because these opportunities to grift off of Trump's base are kind of endless. And that was a very clear-cut example of pure grift and how much money folks like Bannon helped themselves to off of people who were true believers in the cult of Trump. So, it would be remiss to not explore these fraudits.
One other thing about the Build a Wall, just while we're here, Build a Wall. There was an El Paso event for Build the Wall that Patrick Crusius is believed to have attended, who is the guy who killed 27 people in Walmart, and spouted great replacement theory as the reason for it. And if you recall, great replacement theory is neo-Nazi ideology that Steve Bannon has believed for a long time, and that now Tucker Carlson is just spreading willy-nilly on Fox Television. So
it's fear mongering.
It is, but it's very fucking weird that like most of the white supremacists are out there, in Texas around the same time all this shit happened.
There could very well be some sort of connection there.
By the way, Ali Alexander, according to Mike Cernovich, warned Cernovich not to go to El Paso that day.
It's very possible that Ali Alexander knew something was going to happen.
There are real indications, and this is not like blue anon. It's like Cernovich said on Twitter, Ali Alexander told me that there was going to be shit going down. He didn't know where, but somewhere in El Paso. So,
So my question about Cernovich is
weird, man. All this stuff, like why?
Yeah.
Also, the new shooter in Colorado is all up in this same great replacement theory, hyper masculine bullshit, just like Cernovich.
Yeah.
In fact, he was a huge fan of Cernovich and retweeted him 127 times. This is the guy in Colorado who was also a white supremacist mass murderer. So there's a lot of white supremacist mass murderers around these people. It's weird, I don't know.
Yeah.
Funny how that happens. A whole bunch of people.
Coinkydink.
Yeah, it's almost like Peter Thiel paid for a white supremacist mass shooter generator, you think? I don't know.
We don't know, but it's not.
We don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
TM.
Maybe.
We don't know.
Maybe.
Somebody's patsing that shit in at Deal Capital.
Well, you know what?
Where's the white supremacist shooter generator?
Yeah, right.
We
Sorry.
will be following the
Our
money.
humor is
and
dark, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize.
We will be
Yes.
following the money always, and we will be following the radicalization always. Thus, the name of our show. We're trying to radicalize people back toward the light and the truth and the good, because that is totally doable. So next up, what's the final why it matters?
So the final story this week on Why It Matters is Poland's got Pegasus. You have to ask yourself, what the heck does that mean? What it means is that the majority ruling party in Poland, the Law and Order Party, which in Polish is unfortunately PiS, is the, you can't make this stuff up, folks, I swear. But they admitted that they had purchased the Israeli NSO group's Pegasus phone hacking software. Now, why is this important? Well, it goes to show that NSO Group and their Pegasus software, which was used by Saudi Arabia against Jamal Khashoggi's circle, his ex-wife and his fiance, that has been used against numerous reporters who have been persecuted. A number of them have been killed. It was, I forget, I believe it was used in the Malta killing. Jim, you know who I'm talking about. What's her name? Johnny? No.
The reporter.
Yeah. I know who
Yeah.
you're talking about.
I can't think of her name off the top of my
I
head.
can't
But
think of her name either.
yeah. And obviously NSO has created a software that has caused havoc and has caused destruction and has caused oppression across the globe. And Poland is admitting to using this, right? Another thing we need to talk about with the NSO group is the fact that they actually worked with Lieutenant General retired Michael Flynn through his Q Cyber Technologies group.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a global plot. Yes, that this is being done globally.
Just
Yeah.
Q Cyber Technologies Group. Just say it.
Yeah, right.
You can't just skip over the fact that it was Q.
The guy named it
Group.
Q. Mike Flynn is the brain behind the vast majority of Q. Not all of it. There are other players, right? But yes.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's just funny. I mean, Mike Flynn's basically Q. Just in case anyone didn't know.
These people are not
explain.
original. These people
What's
are
that?
not original with their thinking. I mean, he named it Q Cyber Technologies.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got digital soldiers. They hired a shitload of trolls. I mean, he's not. I don't know.
What I appreciate about your news block is it's unlike any other, and I appreciate the same about Jim's Hellscape. You can't turn on the news and get into the weeds on what is happening internationally and why it matters here. So I appreciate all the work that's put into that and the stories that you bring every week, because the response that we're getting is super positive and people are grateful to be informed.
I just want people to get it. I just want them to understand what is being done globally that is affecting us here in the United States.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for that, Hi-Fi. And I believe that our friend Mr. Connor may have a little legal briefing related to Facebook. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's been a filing which could have some significant consequences depending on if it goes through. Basically, there was a wrongful death suit that was filed against an individual, and the only defendant named in the suit is Meta. So Meta was named. Let me just pull this up here. They were named as the defendant, and they're arguing that Meta connected Officer Underwood's murder and his accomplice to help build and spread the Boogaloo community online, and they played an active role in connecting these two individuals. So the worst part is the murderer was an active Air Force military individual. He was a sergeant in the military. So that's pretty unfortunate. But this could have good, impactful ramifications should this lawsuit go through in creating liability for social media companies as the agent that connects and radicalizes these individuals. You can see this graph here. This is the graph that came up in one of their reports from Facebook, which shows the engagement line increases dramatically as it approaches the prohibited content line. So right around this area, right around the area where they meet,
over
Zuckerberg
here.
wanted. Yeah, exactly. So that's a pretty frightening line. Now, hopefully, they will push this through. And like I was telling you guys the other day at AAJ, they've been talking about this for a long time. And the one legal argument that I hope that they pursue is showing that editorial content would be the fact that the recommendation link that they provide an individual would not exist had they not published it. So when
Okay.
you get someone recommended to you, that link does not exist. That's not put up there by any other individual. It's put up there by the company itself,
Yeah.
which is a publication of information by the company. So that's a potential avenue for liability, hopefully, that they're going to pursue in this case, because
That
reading
could be a game changer potentially.
it could be really, yeah.
Wow.
Reading through the complaint, it looks like they're approaching that argument. So we'll see. But
All
keep track
right.
of it. We'll give you guys updates as they come.
Very, very, very important stuff. Thank you for
It
that.
reminds me of the Twitter algorithm when I first got started, and I typed the
The
word
video, right?
praying in, found praying medic whose QAnon account, and then just hit follow 100 fucking times. And I was in QAnon, like it was all QAnon. I typed the word praying in, got a QAnon guy, and then 100 clicks after that, which I had nothing to do with whatsoever, did not promote it at all. I ended up basically at the front door of a giant cult indoctrination machine.
We'll have to show that, Jim. We'll have to show that video of yours. So it's remarkable.
Yeah, so at some point,
Yeah.
some point we should do that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called. I have a video called 15 minutes into becoming a QAnon cult member.
Wow.
And I start out with a blank. It's all screen capped. I start out with a blank screen, and 15 minutes later, I've got, I don't know, 100 followers, a bunch of friends, people
Wow.
liking me, and I'm in a long thread about the right caliber of bullet to shoot Democrats with.
Yeah.
That's how it ends.
What I find so incredibly disturbing, the whole thing's disturbing, but I did a lot of reporting on human trafficking when I was in broadcast news, and they honeypotted young girls who weren't quite necessarily right, often target and love bombed the shit out of them, and then snatched them and took them into a different surrounding and abused them and put them out on the street. And it was all done quite often in a 24-hour period. And it scares me to hear what you're saying, because it sounds like there's parallels. Seduced in, love bombed in, a community created, traumatized, spit out.
Yeah, it can happen real fast. Especially, for women, and I've talked about this a lot, and, I won't get into it too much, but the traumatic content that are basically part of the required entrance exam into QAnon
Yeah.
is dissociative and traumatic,
Yeah.
and can very, very quickly, like, psychologically hook and traumatize somebody into becoming obsessed with the idea that there's a whole bunch of kids out there getting, the adrenochrome sucked out of them.
Right.
It's a real thing.
Well, wow. That just important stuff. Important stuff. So right before we get into Hellscape, I did want to point people to the series that I'm doing at Byline Times, reflecting back on January 6th. The first two stories dropped. The first one followed and documented the dark money that paid for Trump's failed coup. And the second one shows the militarization of the far right, and why I recommend you read both of them. But in particularly, just pay attention, please. The coup failed because people like Jim and his colleagues told anti-fascists and those who were opposing the MAGA crowd to stay home. And people did stay home, and all that was left to beat up on were the police officers, and that was just, the whole thing is just so grotesque. But the point being that democracy lived to see another year, and we have 3 more dropping in the next few days. At least tomorrow's focuses on the anti-abortion Roe ops who were there and all the money behind that. So, yeah, the more the less strange everything seems, because it all kind of leads back to a lot of the same people. So, without further ado, part 2, let's get right into Jim's Hellscape.
Jim Stewartson's Hellscape. Oh, fuck.
All right,
Fuck.
here we go. Oh fuck.
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck.
All right, what are we doing this week, man?
There's my.
Oh, I got you.
This is fine.
I got you.
Everything's
I got
okay.
you.
The dumpster
So,
fire.
do we have that tweet? I think.
The Banner one.
That one.
This one.
The Ohio AG, I think.
Oh.
So this guy, the Attorney General of the entire state, of the actual state of Ohio, went on, Smirconish to talk about why he was opposed to vaccine mandates. And in the process, was asked, well, if there was legislation for mandates instead of the court, would you be okay with that? And he was like, no, because that still represents the administrative state strangling the people of Ohio, or something to that effect. And that is a very specific phrase, and it's a very important one. Steve Bannon used that phrase starting in 2017 to represent his ideology, which is explicitly, Duginist or Leninist or Nazbol or traditionalist. There are a bunch of different versions, but it's all kind of occultish Nazism, effectively, at the end of the day.
And that's
And it is
that phrase is
about
dismantle the state. Is that right?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So one more time on that graphic, if you look on the right, there's a guy named Julius Evola. All right, cool. And Julius Evola was a very dangerous Nazi fascist propagandist who literally advised Hitler, and went on to develop an ideology related to esoteric Nazism, that basically says the world, it's very much end times ideology in the sense that there needs to be an apocalypse. In this case, it's mob rule is what they call it. It's Kali Yuga. It's an old Hindu tradition or idea that has been totally twisted and appropriated into this esoteric Nazism. So anyway, that's the stuff that Bannon believes. That's the reason why he wants to deconstruct, dismantle, destroy the administrative state, whatever you want to call it, because he literally believes in this esoteric Nazi idea that mob rule has to take over in order for elites like Steve Bannon to rise and rule the world. Literally, that's what he thinks. There's another strain of it that he ascribes to called it's traditionalism, but it's an occult traditionalism, and it's real ugly stuff. And it used to be very kind of obscure, but now is just all over the place in Telegram. And by the way, one more time on that graphic. So that those triangles there is the Valknut, and that is a Nordic rune that has been appropriated by neo-Nazis. And the place you can most prominently see that is on the chest of Jacob Chanley, the QAnon shaman.
Okay. And Jim,
So
why
there you go.
was it so disturbing to you that you wanted to lead your hellscape with it? Is it the fact that they're saying the quiet part out loud? I mean, the
Yeah,
normalization of it?
it's no, this is more more pernicious than that. They're not really saying. So the reason I got suspended the first time was because Joe Rogan invoked Kali Yuga um, on his Facebook.
Okay.
And again, Kali Yuga, yes, it is an old Hindu thing. No one uses it for that anymore. Like
Okay.
whenever you hear that shit, it's esoteric Nazi shit. That's what
Okay.
it's about. And Joe Rogan was too fucking stupid, or he's actually on purpose trying to push Bannon's ideology, because that's
Okay.
what it leads to. Literally, Kali Yuga leads to Bannon's ideology, which is Dugan and Evla and all these fucking crazy people.
I just
I-
So
can
yeah,
show.
you see the Vulcanet there on his
see the symbol there?
chest.
Yes.
If you look at the picture, there you go.
Can I just
So-
say something about this guy real fast? This Jacob
Sure.
Chansley. All right, look, this guy right here, Jacob Chansley, he just did a podcast interview a couple weeks back, right? And one of the big things he said that stuck out to me during this interview is he said, WTF, mate. Well, if you know anything about internet history, you know that WTF, mate comes from one of the first viral videos that ever appeared on the internet about 20 years ago. I think it was 2000, 2001. It's called The End of the World, right? And all that tells me is Jacob Chansley is not this. I think the image that he projects of this shamanistic, vegan eating, blah, 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 whatever the hell hippie crap he spews.
No, he's a fucking anon. That's all.
Well,
He's an edgelord, dude. He's an edgelord anon
He's
who
always
took the
been an
game too
edgelord. He's
far.
been an anon. He's been on the chans forever. Like,
would
Yeah,
this be
yeah,
would this
and
be
he was
what you guys
weaponized.
call a LARP? Would that be LARP? Is he playing a role and not really what he appears to be like? You see him with
I
a
don't
suit
know. I
with
mean,
Giuliani.
I think he's a true believer.
Okay, here's
think
what I got to
Jacob
say
Chansley
about
got
this.
mind fucked, like for real.
It
Go ahead.
could very well be. It could very well be. But here's where the truth is going to be outed, right? If you look at his bank account, think about all the QAnon events that this guy went to, right? And that's a lot of travel, and that's a lot of hotels
no
or
doubt.
crashing somewhere, and that's a lot of food, and that's a lot of plane tickets, and blah, 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 blah. That shit costs money. Where did he get all his money to do all this? Why didn't prosecutors look at that? I mean, if
Well,
you want
maybe they-
evidence of a conspiracy, follow the freaking money.
Well, maybe they
And
did.
what was
right?
he doing
Like,
hanging
here's
out
the-
with Rudy
here's the
Giuliani?
thing. Let's move on from the shaman, because I don't want to give this fucking guy too much time. Honestly.
Fair enough. I'm just pointing out his
3.5
bullshit.
years is not nothing in terms of
Yeah.
a prison sentence, which is what
Yeah.
he got. And you're right, he knows a lot of people. And look, I've been getting a lot of shit for saying, look, there's no fucking investigations going on right now. There aren't. You know, they like Merrick Garland can get up there and tell me all about norms if he wants. But there are no serious investigations going on right now. At least I hope that the people that they have put in jail, that they have put through the system, have coughed up everybody that they know. So,
Yeah.
you know, and Chansley
Agreed.
knows a fuck ton more than, you know, the little innocent act and he's putting out there.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, the image of him with Bernard Kerik and Rudy Giuliani, where he's wearing like the gangster suit with the red tie, right? He dressed up. They're grinning like hyenas. He knows what he's doing.
Well, so okay, more shall be revealed on that. I'm with Jim though. I don't want to see his face again for some time. Certainly not with the horns.
Fair.
So talking about trolling, LARPing, and all that good stuff, I think we have a little video clip from South Park that we're going to run, right?
We do. Here we go.
I've studied your work. You're one of the best trolls I've ever seen.
Reverse axiom is a well-known equation in online trolling. It's a way in which one person can create a massive reaction on the internet. Look, person A trolls person B, but it's not about person B. The troll is trying to push buttons to try and get a reaction from hundreds, eventually creating person C, whose overreaction and self-righteousness will elicit a reaction from persons D through F, who weren't trolls but can't help rip on person C.
You're just setting them against each other. It's like the fission reaction that sets off the fusion explosion. The internet does it all.
I am so triggered right now.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Wow.
So that video is from 2016, which is really fucking early. I mean, look, there was trolling in everywhere on the internet for many years before that. But you know, it really is the like perfect. It's almost like, you know, those guys knew somebody who knew exactly what the playbook is.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think the name Trevor's Axiom is an accident. I will not
Trevor
go into why, because he's very
Exactly.
litigious.
Yeah.
But
What?
there's a reason why South Park did that in 2016. And pardon me. And it's something that all of us have been experiencing in real time for a long time. But it's been especially intense recently. You know, for me, it's been 18 months of this shit.
Yeah.
I have literally seen it all.
Yeah.
There's one person in particular. I will not say this person's name. I'm not going to say any of their fucking names because it's not worth it.
Are
Yeah.
they
But
a blue
here's a
check?
person who reported me for being abusive and harassing because I commented wryly on an insurrectionist. Like,
Yeah.
this person reported me for that, supposedly a leftist.
Yeah.
And over the
Supposedly.
last 3 days since I came back from getting suspended, has posted hundreds, like many
Yeah.
hundreds, not like
Yeah.
not like dozens, like hundreds and hundreds of
Yeah.
batshit abusive, insane, defamatory, lying messages.
Yeah.
And it's quite remarkable. So, you know, the good
Yeah.
news is, look, it's all happening in public. So, you know,
Yeah.
I actually have every single one of these tweets archived. I
Yeah.
have network maps of the entire thing. Like, it's as plain as day what it is.
Yeah.
But it's really just astonishing that this kind of behavior is just allowed to go on while people like me who do not abuse anyone ever. So don't fucking lie about me. I don't. You know, if they're gonna like permanently suspend me for something I didn't do and allow this to go on, it's a real problem. Not just for me, but for anybody else.
Bag of dicks. Excuse me. Moving right along. Yeah, word. I knew.
Oh, that's not even abuse, Heidi.
I knew 2022 was going to be vicious, and I knew it was going to be ugly. I just didn't know that it was going to start on the very first, you know, business day, open for business, you know, and that's exactly what happened. It didn't disappoint, and I'm looking forward to all of these, you know, people with spiritual maladies to being revealed for who and what they are, and whether that, you know, happens organically through, you know, court discovery or not, we'll see. But you know,
there's people that break things down and seek to destroy things, you know, spend 3 hours a day trying to tear things down. And there's people that create things, you know.
Yeah.
So I think we're trying to create things. And so one of the things we've created, right, is Jim's association with Midas Touch and the creation of this new series. Jim, you want to introduce that?
Yeah, we take action. We don't just go shit on people's lawns all day. We're actually doing things. We're building shows. You know, Jim's doing a series. You know, I do investigative reporting, you know, all fucking night long. And it's like we produce. And there's a big difference between those who sit around and point fingers and, you know, do psychological battery and those who actually produce. And I'm glad we're in the producers' seats.
Yeah,
and that's
I mean,
why
look,
we have this rad show.
Yeah, there are people whose job it is to create things, and there are people whose job it is to destroy things.
Yeah, that's true too.
So if there are people out there who seem to be super focused on tearing somebody else down, there's a reason for that, right? Like me,
You're a job
I
creator,
tear
Jim.
down Michael Flynn all day, every day, and I have a reason for that. I am extremely open about what that reason is. The reason is that he is a fucking traitor and he needs to go to prison. Now, the people who are coming after me, they do not, for example, tell you why. They just make shit up and hope that it's going to, smear me and bring me down.
And
So,
to that point, though, when somebody calls you something that you are not, such as a felon or such as a pedo, I'm just going to say it because that's what's been said, and that is not true, and there's no factual basis. They are opening themselves up for litigation. I just want to make that clear, too. So go ahead and call people a felon without indicating why at your own risk. And with that, I would love to get on to American Mindfuck before we get on to our interview with Martin. Yay!
Cool. So let me just set it up a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because I haven't really talked about this piece at all. So this this interview with me was recorded in February of 2021, so almost a year ago.
Wow.
I was working on a TV series with the idea of trying to get this information out there, real information told in a way that is both empathetic and forgiving for the bad actors here. I thought that it was important to get something out like that, and so we created a pilot. And so the pilot is what we're going to be releasing soon with Midas. And
so
I'm
cool.
extremely proud of it. This teaser that they were kind enough to release an hour before I got unsuspended, which may not be a coincidence. This is the first 3 minutes, just before the credits of the show.
Right on.
There's a Voltaire quote: "If they can make you believe absurdities, they can make you commit atrocities." In a nutshell, that's what this is.
There was a new phenomenon this week, something called QAnon.
What exactly is QAnon, and why is it making headlines now?
When we go one, we go all. God bless America.
QAnon was a perfect storm. They had set this thing up since 2017. They had created this huge radicalized set of people. Then the pandemic comes.
Americans in retreat tonight seeking isolation in the face of the coronavirus. The federal government is taking new steps forward to fight the pandemic.
As President Trump, flanked by major CEOs and his task force, announced a national emergency.
And suddenly you've got 100 million more people online.
Well, as of today, all but a handful of states have issued stay-at-home orders.
With a shitload of time on their hands.
This comes as Alabama and Missouri just joined 40 other states that are urging people to stay home. That covers nearly 95%.
Urges caution. There is concern fear will turn to panic.
Store shelves nationwide are dwindling or totally empty.
When I started this and I saw what I saw, I told people, I was like, you guys, you don't understand. Will you fucking listen to me, please?
Comes along with panic.
There are mounting questions now over an alleged plot to overthrow Michigan state government and kidnap the governor.
Told them exactly what was going to happen.
Look at how they're driving.
God bless you. I'll see you in Washington, January 6th.
But it was difficult to be that crazy guy. And I have been trashed and harassed and trolled and fucking lied about because no one wants to hear this.
Well done, my friend.
Yeah. You're muted.
And he just disappeared.
Well done.
Sorry,
Well,
I'm just getting used to this.
Are you having a bashful moment? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm real proud of it. I'm excited to, for the rest of it to come out. And I'm very, very proud to be partners with Midas Touch, who also just announced a podcast with a friend of mine, Stephen Hassan,
right on.
cult expert on Twitter, who knows more about how to help people who are victims of undue influence
Yeah.
than anyone else on the planet. So proud to be, partners with them, and can't wait to show you more.
It's a great ecosystem, and I love Dr. Hassan. So I'm so proud of everyone, proud of you, Jim. And I'm super proud of the guests that we have coming up. Martin Sheil. When I used to call him Mr. Sheil, he would say, "I'm not going to talk to you unless you call me Marty." So I've been calling him Marty. I'm going to do an intro. Do we have him? Is Marty with us? I think so. I'm getting excited. Oh my gosh, there he is in living color. I'm just going to do a quick intro before you introduce yourself. So during one of my 2 a.m. investigations into Robert Mercer, I stumbled upon one of Marty's blogs on Deutsche Bank, Mercer, and Trump. And for me, it was like manna from heaven. I called him up. I found a wealth of information, and he and I have probably done about a dozen stories and various threads. And Marty, as I'd mentioned earlier, worked for something like 3 decades within the IRS, most notably Criminal Division, as well as in a supervisory capacity. And he knows more than anybody about the global laundromat. And without further ado, Marty, would you mind giving our viewers just a little synopsis of your bio?
Oh, you there, Marty? Let's see here. He's frozen up.
This is the wonderful thing about us not being live. There he is.
There you go, Marty.
Now, I feel a little more restrained than when we communicate via email. But first, Jim, that was great. I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that. Heidi, you got part of my bio right. I did spend over 30 years with the criminal investigation of the IRS in various supervisory capacities: SAC, ASAC, Director of Forensics, Director of Forfeiture, a bunch of other stuff. When I left IRS, Deloitte picked me up as a contractor under a contract with Department of Justice, OCDEF. OCDEF stands for Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. They embedded me in the heart of DEA in Chicago with a one-line mission statement, which was follow all cartel money, seize it and forfeit it if possible. And when they say follow it, they meant follow it around the globe, because that's where it went. So I literally every day a new chapter in a and I learned more about the databases that all the agencies have, including Treasury, then I knew when I was in the IRS and supervising IRS agents, I had no idea all the different databases that FinCEN has, for instance, and Department of Treasury, and what they can lead to. And so we were able to make some really dynamic cases in the Great Lakes area of this country. I never had a dull moment. And, after 6-7 years of following the money and seizing the money, my contract came to an end, and I said, I think I'm done. And, I started following Trumpgate and, following all these talking heads coming on, talking about, various obstruction of justice investigations and everything else. And I kept saying, follow the money. Where did the money come from to do this or that and everything else? And I would start writing little emails to writers and talking heads saying, why don't you ask this question or that question? Of course, like maybe 1 out of 10 folks responded. But when they did, they were very gracious, and sometimes they followed up. But after a while, I said, well, how hard can this be to actually write articles, like these folks do, and to make commentary? I used to have to write reports all the time. So I said, I think I'll take a shot at writing some articles. And now I've had like about 85 of them published. And, I think I found my little niche. I've actually started to write a book. And, because I'm told that you're not a real writer until you write a book. So, and I'm finding that writing a book, there is a lot to it. It is kind of hard.
I'm so excited to hear that you're writing a book. That is such great
It's amazing,
news.
yeah.
Well, what I'd like to start with, since there's such a wealth of information, but we may as well just start somewhere. You just did an op-ed for The Hill on your recommendations on dealing with Putin. Can you give us a synopsis on that?
Sure. Now, going into this Ukraine crisis, there's various concerns about just, will Russia actually invade Ukraine? What will deter them if they do? And there's been all sorts of statements that Russia must be confronted with serious consequences, severe consequences. And the UK Prime Minister said yesterday, massive consequences. So what exactly are the they're talking economic. No one is talking about actual, going to war. And this is important. Now, how do you differentiate many Russian banks and Russian people, oligarchs, in fact, have been sanctioned in the past. So what would be different this time? What would be serious or severe or massive? And so at the time I started writing, the Pandora Papers had just released their last tranche of investigative files, which were done by the ICIJ, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. And they had determined that, they had looked at something like 27,000 shell companies that had been formed. And they came to the conclusion that a disproportionate number of those shell companies were owned by Russians, and not just by any Russians, but by the 46 largest oligarchs. So, and to the tune of, just under 4,000 of the 27,000 shell companies were owned by these Russian and controlled by Russian oligarchs. So, not knowing what exactly anyone means or defines serious economic consequences or severe or massive, I wrote an article saying, well, how would truly targeted sanctions against Putin's people work? Would these be considered serious? And I suggested that let's take the Pandora Papers, the detail of which demonstrated all the shell companies, all the bank accounts, all around the globe. And actually, it's pretty interesting. If you get a chance, read the Pandora Papers, because like the first article, the first issue, talks about how Putin's baby mama was subsidized in a luxury condo in Monaco that was apparently purchased by a shell company. This is Putin's girlfriend, mistress, baby mama, whatever. And my thinking was, that's the kind of stuff that needs to go out, that needs to be disseminated to the Russian people, to all the people, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, wherever, all the hardworking people who, don't exploit their industries, don't skim off the top and siphon monies and put it offshore. Let the regular Russian people know about all these shell companies, about these luxury condos in Monaco, about these yachts, about these soccer teams, where all the money that goes, that gets siphoned out of the Russian economy. So I said, let's provide FinCEN with all the details of the shell companies and the bank accounts, and let them work with the identified banks around the world and sanction or freeze all these shell company accounts, but at the same time disseminate all this information, the detail of the information, to the Russian people, and let them know just where the money's going, because we all know that the Russian people really are very concerned about income inequality. This guy Navalny, who was the Russian political leader, the last opposition leader that Putin has faced in some time, had really touched the nerve by videotaping various Putin palaces that, really, their regular Russian worker or pensioner barely gets by. And now they're seeing these Putin palaces, and that created a firestorm of resentment.
It did. It revealed the gluttony of what Navalny called someone who was mentally ill. You had said
It's
something
also the
very.
reason why Navalny got so targeted, right? I mean,
Navalny got Novichoked,
Yeah.
and then
he got Novichoked through his drawers.
Yeah. Yes.
So
worse than that, huh?
Yeah, you really got to make someone mad to.
Big mad. Go ahead, Jim.
I just wanted to ask, because I like, this is what needs to happen. There are two things you said that are really important. One, in my opinion, one is informing the Russian people what is the truth about their leaders and the people who are actually pulling the strings and repressing them, right? Think about dictatorships like this, is they don't even know they're being repressed. So for me, there's an element to this which concerns me in terms of deterrence, right? Deterrence for Ukraine. I have the feeling that Ukraine is actually just kind of a shiny object that Putin is putting out there in order to cover up for the fact that he's engaging in, psychological and propaganda warfare on the United States, and has been for many years now. It's the reason why our country is turning into this nightmare, is because of all the propaganda. And so my feeling is we need to start not thinking of this as deterrence against kinetic warfare, but as defense against active measures which are seriously undermining the national security of the country. So I was just curious, your thought just generally on that, and if I would love to see a plan where we say, hey, Joe Biden, here are the things that you need to start doing right now. When he doesn't do anything, let's do this. And when he doesn't do that, then let's really hit it.
Right.
Anyway, sorry for the
which brings me to part two. it was a good segue. If you're still going, I'll let you go, but it's a nice segue. So I wanted to point out, I agree with your analysis there, and I think Putin is wagging the dog here. The last time, his poll numbers were this low was 2014. And so what did he do? He invades Crimea. His poll numbers shot up. So what Putin is doing is recognizing that there's a deep streak of nationalism in the average Russian, that they really miss the loss of the Russian Empire. So what Putin's doing is stealing a page out of the Trump MAGA book and saying, hey, let's make Russia great again. And when he does something along those lines, people forget about the COVID and the long lines and the fact that they got no money and they can't buy anything. And it's, let's make Russia great again. And so I think there is much to that. And so when you talk about specific plans or steps, I have like a two-step plan. You heard the first part, which was that article when we're talking about, truly targeted sanctions. Really kind of address.
You froze for a second, Marty. You know what? Because the connection's a little bit weak, if you can try to stay still, that helps keep things from freezing. So
Staying
part two.
Okay. Is what I suggest is the Department of Treasury has authority to enforce a section of the U.S. Patriot Act, Section 311, something like that, which they've only used one time, and that was when they basically delicensed a bank in Cyprus called FBME, Federal Bank of the Middle East, for serious money laundering. Now, all the banks in Cyprus, money laundering is their business plan. That's it. And something like 7% of all bank accounts in Cyprus bank accounts are accounts. And also, most of those are on Russians. So what I'm suggesting is that the U.S. Treasury dust off that Patriot Act section, which allows them basically to pull the license of the two main banks in Cyprus, which is Bank of Cyprus, BOC, and the other one is the Russian Commercial Bank, RCB, which is a licensed subsidiary of, which is the largest bank in Russia. Now, when I first started looking at this section of the Patriot Act, I was thinking of just focusing on these two main financial institutions, both of which there's tremendous amount of evidence of money laundering by Russians, by Russian oligarchs, not just Russian officials. But then when I looked at the section of the Patriot Act, it also allows for pulling the licenses of all banks in a jurisdiction known for money laundering concerns. So what I'm suggesting is pull the licenses of all the Russian banks that all cater to Russian oligarchs. So now you're really targeting Russian oligarchs, not Russian people, not hardworking people, but Russian oligarchs right where it hurts, their bank accounts. So they won't be able to move money to the Virgin Islands or to the Caribbean or Belize or Singapore or anywhere else. And they're going to be really hamstrung. So now you have a two-pronged attack. Now you're getting and you disseminate this information once again to the Russian people, to the Navalny people. Maybe you can get a groundswell of support that really resent this, sort of like the Orange Revolution in Kiev in 2004. Or, and maybe more importantly, the Russian elite, these Russian oligarchs, are not going to take kindly to not being able to move their money around and having their shell accounts put under a financial microscope. And maybe they will do what they did when they brought Putin in. They replaced Yeltsin with Putin. Roman Abramovich was the one that went to Yeltsin and said, "You're done. Your time is up. You need to select a successor. We suggest Putin." So oligarchs made Putin. The oligarchs can take Putin out and replace him. And that's what I'm suggesting here. Maybe the folks, the Russian folks, don't want to pull another, orange revolution, but maybe the oligarchs do, And so that's the thrust of my suggestion. We'll go after, use economic sanctions, designated, targeted on the oligarchs, but pull their banks, de-license the banks, don't allow them to work with any Western banks anywhere in the world. What are they going to do? So
I got to say, I love the idea of Putin getting murked by his own oligarchs. That's awesome.
Well,
I love that.
Everything about this is brilliant and awesome, and I just want it to happen immediately. Why aren't we doing this? Seriously, why in the world wouldn't we do it? I mean, they're pumping poison into our country all day long, every single day. It's hard to imagine that we don't have the justification to pull their money, or at least make it not tradable in our democracy.
But a major question in my mind is, where do the American people stand on the question of Ukraine? Will folks in the Midwest and Oklahoma and Kansas and Iowa really give a shit if Putin invades Ukraine again? I mean, remember Mike Pompeo? Remember him challenging, I think that was the NPR reporter saying, nobody cares about Ukraine. Nobody can find it on the map. I bet you can't find it on the map. And of course, the lady reporter from NPR pointed it right out on the globe, said, yeah, I can do it. There it is. But that still represented Pompeo's attitude, and maybe the attitude of a lot of people in this country, that who cares? Just like, where's Kazakhstan? I mean, who cares? But I still remember Ambassador William Taylor. He's the longest serving ambassador to Ukraine. And he did some tremendous testimony before the impeachment committee in Congress. And he had an opening statement that really just, made me shiver. He said that Ukraine is the key. If Ukraine is allowed to be dominated by Russia, then Europe will be dominated by Russia. And the Russian Empire will reemerge. Yeah. So, but if Ukraine is allowed to stay free and democratic, so will all of Europe. So,
Ukraine is really a gateway.
What was that?
Ukraine is really a gateway for Russia to move, oil, drugs, sex trafficking, whatever they need. They move it through Ukraine. I mean, they do it kind of through Albania and Moldova. I mean, yes, I actually know my geography.
Right. Well, when there was a big Russian organized crime conference, it was actually held in Tel Aviv several years ago. The big topic of conversation was who gets Ukraine. And it was decided at that conference that Semyon Mogilevich got Ukraine. And,
well, of course, because he's the boss, right?
Well, he's the brainy guy. Well, actually, the guy who convened the conference was a Russian-Canadian Israeli by the name of Boris Berstein. Berstein was a major money launderer, but he was actual KGB. And he was in charge of Director K, which directed the financial operations of KGB. And he set up a front company called Sabiko. And Sabiko was used to bring back all the communist gold that was dispersed throughout what had been the old Soviet Union. On the fall of the Berlin Wall and the fall of the Soviet Union, they had to get all the gold back. And they sent it down to Swiss banks for safekeeping. That was part one. Part two, and what still goes on, is that Sabiko subsidized all foreign operations of KGB, major league, number one being disrupt elections in various Eastern European countries and any other country. So I just want to make one last point with that Sabiko, because I'm sure you're wondering, well, where are you going with that? Well, there was a couple of major operatives that operated under Berstein. One of them is a guy by the name Alexander Mashkevich. Mashkevich is a Kazakh who is also a Jewish guy who travels under an Israeli passport, but he's known as part of the trio or the Kazakh troika, along with a couple other guys. But they were major money launderers. Mashkevich laundered for the Russians in Belgium under Sabiko and got investigated for money laundering. He also, later on down the road, became a major investor in Trump Soho with the rest of the Kazakh trio. So, and a few years later, in 2017, January 2017, Mashkevich appeared at the candlelight dinner, the inaugural, in the White House for Mr. Trump.
Well,
there's a $1 million buy-in for that candlelight dinner. Okay?
Yes, this brings us to a beautiful point.
Apparently that $1 million buy-in, meant that Secret Service didn't vet this guy, guy who had worked for KGB for money laundering in Belgium and
Quick bullets on Giuliani. You worked with him, what he was like then, and what you think his, how you feel his exposure is now.
Oh, he's a hurting buckaroo now. He was a brilliant guy back when I knew him. I mean, his mind was razor sharp, terrific memory. More than anything, you could tell him several paragraphs worth of detailed financial evidence, and he would remember it all, and he would spew it back 10 minutes later at the press conference, word for word. And I sat there more than once, just like amazed that anybody could do that. That Rudy isn't around with us anymore. That Rudy is long gone. I think too many cigars, too much cognac, too much living in the fast lane. Maybe, I don't know. It's just he's got some serious issues. I don't see how he's going to beat the Farah indictment, and I suspect there's a good chance there'll be superseding indictments in terms of very similar to. They started off with Manafort with Farah indictments, then they got to money laundering and tax evasion, and et cetera. I think the government will be threatening Rudy with all that. I think Rudy, in the long run, will end up pleading out, making his best deal, cutting his best bargain, and he'll fall on a sword just like Michael Cohen did, and he'll testify against whoever he has to testify, and because that's what they all do.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for Rudy, as for a lot of these folks, are legal fees. The expense of going to court triples when trial preparation and in trial. And they want their money, those lawyers, defense attorneys, want their money up front, big retainer. They want 7 figures. And if you don't pay up, they'll walk away. They don't give a shit. The thing that in law enforcement that everyone refers to is defense attorneys' main move is bleed them, then plead them. So I think, remember, Rudy can't defend himself. He's been thrown out of court because he lied in court. He made false statements in court, so he lost his license. So he can't defend himself. He's basically defenseless. So in the long run, he will cut a deal, and that will be real interesting what that deal is.
And he's going to have to sell a lot of cameos to pay a 6-figure, 7-figure lawyer. I mean, that's just.
And let's remember what he lost his license over. He was Mr. Stop the Steal, crying about election fraud, and New York wasn't having it, and DC wasn't having it. So, suspending his law license is a very, very big deal. And let's move right on to Tom Barrack.
Yeah, I personally find, out of all the Trump acolytes, I find Tom Barrack to be maybe the most interesting. Let's just note that from the time Barrack started representing Trump as a main campaign manager or financier or what do you call it, bundler, whatever you want to call him, his company, First Colony, brought in like something close to $40 billion. The bulk of that $40 billion came from Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. So what were the Saudis and the Emiratis looking to get for their money? You know, I
Nukes.
sure would like the answer to that. You know, and
Nukes.
the other question that I have, the major question, is when Barrack was in charge of collecting contributions for the inaugural events, the inaugural committee events, including the candlelight dinner and all that stuff. And there are no restrictions like are for campaign elections. You know, individuals are limited, PACs are limited. You know, of course, dark money gets around and all that, but we all know. But for the inaugural committee, you know, the sky's the limit. And of course, there's a $1 million buy-in to go to the candlelight dinner, which many of the major contributors did. They collected something like $141 million. Okay, that's what was reported anyway. Did they in fact spend $141 million? Because I don't think so. I mean, you know, you see some of those schlep bands that they had, you know,
they had three doors down.
You know, the main
3 doors down was their
I mean,
was their big
so where'd that
stars.
money go? Who did it end up with? And whose pockets did it? I would love to hear Mr. Barrack, you know, plea bargain himself and start explaining that. And how much
I mean, that whole thing was fucked up. Pardon me. Like,
Yes. So just to buttress
the first lady giving $27 million to her friend to like put out like fruit cups. I'm like, dude, no, I don't think so.
Exactly.
To me, this is a great moment because as a lifelong investigative reporter, nobody wanted to play that inauguration because of the stink, right? And then Toby Keith saves the day. So all I do is type in Toby Keith and fraud. And there comes the terrible business dealings with licensing his name and lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. And it's like, thus began the journey of the next 5 years, because pretty much anybody affiliated with Trump, you type in the word fraud, you type in, you know, whatever it is, there's going to be a history of litigation. And yes, they did not have to pay, you know, a premium to these people because so many of them were desperate.
He's literally a really shitty mob boss. Like that, like he's not even a good mob boss.
Exactly.
He's like a very bad, like mid.
He has no
Russian
style, no
boss.
taste,
and it's fucking amazing.
Well, no,
that they managed to stick that creature in the White House.
His taste is along the lines of like an oligarch. It's a type of taste, you know, a lot of the gold. So I don't want to waste a second because I know our time is ticking here, but we are going to have some laughs when we do this. Jim has a specific name that he'd like you to give us a bullet point on. Bernie Carrick.
Bernie.
Bernie.
Oh man, Bernie and Rudy were like two peas in a pod, man. I'll tell you. You know, they were New York law enforcement at its finest. They both had what back then. You know, all the tough guys, law enforcement included, always talked in the Italian vernacular. So if one of you guys are, pardon me up front, but they would talk. Gumad on the side, you know, we got to go see this god, that Gumad, you know, and I got to see this one. I got to keep happy around. They had girlfriends left and right, and Bernie.
They were living like gangsters.
Yeah, and Bernie is like ex-police commissioner. I mean, if anyone knows better, he did, and he was just arrogant and. So anything that happens to him, he deserves it because he disgraced law enforcement the way he acted. So I don't have a problem with what happens to Bernie Carrick.
Okay, beautiful. And nor does Jim.
I have a personal bone to pick with him because one of his lieutenants is this ex DIA Green Beret idiot named Tony Schaefer, who is actually the reason I got suspended the second time.
Oh, okay.
Because he called me a felon and a pedophile, neither of which are true.
Can I talk about his tax
I got
liens?
suspended for saying, "Hey, you're an idiot" or something, you know. So. Anyway,
no, we don't dox people, as Jim has taught us. That's not.
Oh no, this isn't doxing. It's
nevertheless, I feel
what?
like
What's doxing?
Oh, well, Tony Schaefer and his inability to pay his taxes, shall we say?
Oh, look, that happens to people. That's not that, that is not for me the big story. The big story is the fact that he's in the mob, and also was
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
was a huge participant in the planning of the insurrection. That's the important part. Like they were working with Flynn, they were working with all of those guys to steal the election, to overthrow democracy.
Okay. So since all right, now it's Josh's turn, because here's what I want to say. Throwing an insurrection is freaking expensive, right? You got to have soldiers, you got to have body armor, you got to have blah 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 blah. So what I've noticed, I met up with Jim after I don't care about Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't, my opinions are my opinions, but you don't get to fundraise off of murder, and that's what he did. And what it turns out is this website, Give, Send, Go, was one of the go-to online fundraising portals for a bunch of these right-wing people who went to the insurrection. And we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, right? So my theory, and I got this whole network, we can talk about that some, but my theory is that what they were doing was they were taking prepaid credit cards, like a prepaid Visa, prepaid MasterCard, whatever, right? And they were using other people's names that they'd gotten from like polling data, right? If I've got your name and I know what party you vote, I can make donations in your name through Win Red or Act Blue using a prepaid credit card, right? And that's what I think they were doing. What does the IRS have, or what does FinCEN have, where they could track this? Is this money laundering? Yes or no? It's a prepaid card thing.
Okay. The short answer is it's a type of money laundering. It's called structuring. I was telling Heidi earlier that I wrote an article for the Daily Beast a year or two ago where David Farnhold from Washington Post, somehow a source gave him a spreadsheet which reflected all these credit card payments from campaign donors for what was known as a donor retreat at Mar-a-Lago. And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's broken down into individual credit card payments of like, say, $380 a pop. And it was for catering or for conference rooms or whatever, however they expensed it. It was obviously, as Bernie Barrick would say, fugazi, bullshit. But, it was just under, and it was, several $100,000 over the course of just a few days. But each day, it was structured so the amounts were under $10,000. Now, when a hotel runs a business and takes in over $10,000 at a time, say like $20,000 for a big conference or a catering thing or something like that, they get it in cash or by credit card, going back to your point, then a Form 8300 is supposed to be filed. Now, what the fuck is an 8300? Well, you've probably heard of a CTR that a bank must file if you engage in a financial transaction in the bank, cash transaction over $10,000. If you deposit over $10,000 or you withdraw over $10,000, then the bank is required to file what's known as a currency transaction report, a CTR, with FinCEN.
That's a FinCEN thing.
Yeah, that's FinCEN.
Yeah.
But there's, for an ordinary business, like a jewelry store or a hotel, or think of just about any other kind of business that receives cash or credit card payments in over $10,000, they are supposed to file out a Form 8300, which is the equivalent to a bank's CTR. Now, when I got Farnhold's spreadsheet and I saw, several $100,000, being taken in via credit card over the course of a couple of days, I knew that no 8300 had been filed. It struck me as being what's known as structuring. I use the quotes there, because structuring is more of an internal law enforcement reference. It's usually the first part of a series of financial transactions which are part of money laundering. Just to get into the weeds for a second, how do you define money laundering? Money laundering is any financial transaction derived from a specified unlawful activity that's used to conceal, disguise, etc., the specified unlawful activity, or to promote the specified unlawful activity. So if you have a donor retreat in Mar-a-Lago and all these donors are having their credit cards hit for like $380 a pop, several times over the course of several days, that strikes me, and that money is basically, to me, that represents political contributions being laundered through Mar-a-Lago that probably ends up in Donald Trump's pocket. These are, so I wrote this article and I said, this is structuring, Mr. U.S. Attorney Fort Lauderdale. What are you going to do about it? And I haven't heard back.
That's
nothing but crickets, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left, and I want to use every single second of it. So I am going to say super quick, why are you underwhelmed at Biden signing an executive order against transnational organized crime?
Well, I mean, every president does that. I mean, it's
Okay.
usually one of the first 10 executive orders that they sign because it makes the president look tough on transnational crime. Now, if they really want to do something, I mean, Trump, that was, I think, number 8 executive order, and he was the big executive order guy, and that was his number 8 transnational executive order against transnational crime. The thing is, there are several folks out there that if they followed up on this transnational crime, it might have led right to Trump. This guy, Onashenko, was one of Rudy's sources in Ukraine with regard to Hunter Biden. And Onashenko is a human trafficker. He was moving ladies to UAE, of all places, along with a guy by the name of Walid Arfoush. Now, Onashenko was tied in with what's called, under the transnational organized crime, he was part of something called Derkash's circle, inner circle. This guy Derkash, major money launderer, major criminal. It would take me a while to explain the complexities of how they laundered their money, but Onashenko is the Ukrainian oligarch. He was using a money launderer located out on Long Island, New York, and it was tied into a guy by the name of Boris Kodolarski and another guy by the name of Boris Nayfield. If you Google Boris Nayfield, you will see the last of the Russian organized crime wars for New York City. He will be covered with tattoos, both front and back. I mean, so how does Onashenko end up using the same money launderer as Boris Nayfield and Boris Kodolarski? Small world, huh? If we could do a graphic, I would show you the names that ICIJ actually captured this, and I pointed it out to ICIJ, and I think they passed that on to Eastern District of New York that has auspices over Long Island and Brooklyn and Sheepshead Bay, where Boris Mayfield was.
I will be following up on all of that, and I will get the spellings from you. I would like you to say, is there any, in 1 minute, any laws we should be excited about that may have teeth, that may show the beneficial owners of shell companies coming up, or are we still sort of not there yet?
I'm a little concerned about that. Let me mention UWO. I don't know if I said it earlier. UWO is a UK action. It's called Unidentified Wealth Order. UK authorities in Scotland are looking to push a UWO on the Trump organization with regard to how did they fund Turnberry Golf Course acquisition and another Scottish, and that could happen this year. And I'm looking forward to, because that's one of the confounding mysteries. Where did Trump get the $40 to $50 million to buy Turnberry when he was facing all sorts of financial difficulties at home?
So since you mentioned the T word, is there anything that you can say to our audience about Trump's exposure? Is there any reality to the fact that we may end up seeing justice to somebody who's been just a lifelong, very bad man?
I wish I could express more optimism. The guy is really clever at delaying justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. It all comes down to the New York State, the Manhattan DA's case comes down to Alan Weisselberg. Will the CFO finally cop a plea? I think he will, because his sons got indicted as well as him. I think he'll try to cop a plea to protect his sons and himself. And so there could be finally light at the end of that tunnel. With regard to the congressional investigation with the insurrection, I hold out no hope, because they will delay and delay and delay until November. Then the Republicans will take over, and that'll be the end of that investigation.
Well, my worry is that they take over in November, democracy is dead.
Yeah.
That's my worry.
Yeah,
it's a real worry. So, oh man, we usually like to end on an optimistic note. This is a show.
I have a question. I have to ask this question. Is it really true that all financial investigations have to take at least 14 fucking years before anything actually happens? Or is it all a giant LARP to just make money for lawyers? Because it seems to me that if you're sitting with the FinCEN dashboard, you should be able to figure shit out real quick. And why the fuck does it take so long? Sorry, I apologize.
No,
That's just
you're
my
right.
rant.
Every white collar
if you don't
investigation does take a long time. But look at the Trump investigation. I mean, the guy's got 400 or 500 shell companies. And he was cooking the books. Weisselberg was cooking the books, and the Mazur's accountant was cooking the tax returns, and there's a whole bunch of bank records, corporate records that have to be waded through, that several terabytes of data that have to be mounted into a database so that you can then retrieve that data in some sort of meaningful way from that database, so you can analyze it and then follow up and interview the bad guys.
Okay, but sorry, but wasn't there like a golf course that on his tax returns was valued at like nothing, and then like over here when he was doing it to his investors, it was like 5,900 times more.
Okay,
like
now
isn't
you
that
think
bad and illegal?
that seems
and couldn't they just
like
get
a
him real
prima
quick for
facie
that?
case, right? But what happens in these kinds of cases, because I've been in those kind of cases, and they're not as simple as you just made it sound. What will
Sorry, I don't mean
happen
to be.
is you'll get dueling expert witness testimony. And you're going to have this guy in a $2,000 suit that's going to be an expert with dazzling charts, testifying for Trump. Then you're going to get this guy coming in a testifying for the government in a frumpy, suit, got on a 2-for-1 deal, and and he's going to be, scratching his head, and he's not going to be impressing the jury too much. I'm telling you. So you want to avoid these dueling expert type cases.
Yeah. I do want to say one thing, though. We did see some action with the Mueller report. We did see some indictments. We did see some incarcerations. Unfortunately, we saw what I believe are inauthentic pardonings, too. But we did, there were people who were incarcerated, and there were convictions. And so it's not impossible. The last question I have for you is, this is a show about disinformation. And I believe that the disinformation assault and the influence war that we've been enduring is big cover for corruption. Do you have a line on that?
Yeah, wherever there's political corruption, you're going to find money laundering. So anyone who conducts an investigation into political corruption should also be conducting a money laundering or financial investigation. They go hand in glove, and you see it over and over and over again.
And I lied. One line about Robert Mercer's tax bill.
That guy is such a schmuck. You know, I mean, that's what we say in New York. I mean, he basically, you know, stole $7 billion from the government. That's tax money that he owed. He took that money, instead of paying the government, IRS, the $7 billion, you know, he invests that in his, you know, highfalutin hedge fund, you know, fights the IRS tooth and nail, appeal after appeal after appeal, and then after 10 years, says, okay, you got me, you win, and he writes out a check for $7 billion. But he had taken that $7 billion and invested it, so he's already gotten, you know, $7 billion plus, probably 10, maybe 14 billion from the original $7 billion that he stole in taxes. So, you know, maybe he's brilliant, a financial genius. As far as I'm concerned, you know, I come from a blue collar family. You know, Mercer's a schmuck.
I adore
Hold
you.
on, I got to ask something about
Sheil.
Mercer. I got to ask something about Mercer.
Okay.
All right. What do you think the fact is Mercer paid that $7 billion bill because he wants the heat off of him because of other crap he's pulling right now?
Oh, that could be.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'll give you that.
Just
well, all I
All
want to
right.
say is, Martin Sheil, will you please come back, because we have a million other
Please.
questions for you, and
Yeah, anytime.
you are just a breath of fresh air. And now you guys know why I call him my spirit animal.
Yeah.
I've always been like, you know, a CPA and tax guy groupie. Like they know where the bodies are buried. Thank you so much for gracing
Thank you
us
for
with
having
your
me.
presence.
And thank you for tweeting out my articles. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Whatever
nice to
you
meet you.
need, I got you.
You write good stuff. You write really good stuff. I like it.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, fellas.
Thank you so
Good to
much,
meet you all.
Martin
Thanks
Sheil.
so much, Marty.
Wow, guys, now you know why I'm always talking about Martin Sheil. Oh my God.
Damn, that guy is fucking amazing.
He's amazing, but he gave us the headline. We are going to be breaking news when this drops. Robert Mercer is a schmuck. I mean, come on. You know? Like,
Is that a headline?
Look,
I thought it was
that's our
general
headline.
knowledge.
It's gonna be amazing.
wrote it,
All
so-
right, let's end on a digital dissent, and then I gotta you know, bolt.
Yeah. All right, this is for the new year. Is fitting. All right, guys.
Trust me. Everything's gonna be fine. You met me at a very strange time in my life.
With your feet on the air, your head on the ground. Try this trick and spin it. Yeah. Get to the laughs, but there's nothing in it, and you'll ask yourself, where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
There we go, guys.
Love you guys. Love you
Talk to you later.
guys. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you. Now
Bye.
you know why I've been listening to the Pixies all week.
Want to
Bye,
grow?
guys.